Pacers win. They won a road game against a team they're supposed to beat. They beat the Brooklyn Nets 113-99. Tony East here of Locked On Pacers and Forbes. It might seem like a small feat for the Pacers to beat the Nets, especially given who is available for the Brooklyn Nets today. Their starting five: Zaire Williams, Noah Clowney, Nick Claxton, Tyrese Martin, and Keon Johnson. Not exactly what you'd consider a formidable NBA foe, and yet the Pacers lost to the Hornets, missing a ton of key players earlier this season. They've lost the Hornets twice this year. They've lost to Toronto, missing key players this year, including Quickly and Scotty Barnes in one game, I believe. This is not gimmies for the Pacers, but they got this one. Another sign of their upward trajectory. A 14-point win for the Pacers, in large part coming in the second quarter, where they won that quarter by 14. Pacers were good in the fourth as well. The Nets did have some good moments in this one. Pacers did enough to get it done. 19-18 are the Pacers now. Over 500 for the first time since they were 1-0. It's remarkable how much they've turned things around since they lost in Brooklyn 90-99 in early December. They were 9-14 at the time and now have strung together a 10-4 stretch since then. Impressive stuff from the Pacers. What actually happened in this game? I've talking for a minute and haven't even addressed the basketball game. I would argue that the Pacers are not happy with this. I mean, it was an ugly win, and yes, they don't win ugly very much, as I already said, but they didn't play particularly well. In fact, a lot of the stuff that's been going well for them of late did not really happen in this game. You know, against the Suns and the Heat, their first two games of this calendar year, two things stood out to me. And, you know, if you watch the games, you could tell they were getting up lots of threes. They took 40 in both of those games, and they were generating good ones too. They had a good percentage, and they were crushing the possession battle, right? Well, in this game, 31 threes attempted by the Pacers. In some ways, that's okay. Their shot attempts in total were down. In this game, the possession battle didn't really go their way, and they did a pretty good job getting into the paint. I thought they could have done a little better there throughout the night, but free throws obviously sway their shot totals as well, but only 31 attempts, a little on the low side for them this season. They did make them. They made 12 of them, so an okay night from deep, but didn't feel the same emphasis of getting up the three from the Pacers as you've seen in some recent games. And the other thing that stood out about the Pacers in 2025, the calendar year so far, is they've dominated the possession battle. They beat Miami in Miami on the second. The Pacers that night had 13 offensive rebounds and only 8 turnovers, where the Heat had 16 turnovers and only 5 offensive rebounds. The Pacers took 21 more shots than the Heat. They played the Suns 2 days later. The Pacers in that game had 13 offensive rebounds again and only 8 turnovers again. Exactly the same numbers. The Suns had 13 turnovers and 5 offensive rebounds. The Pacers took 18 more shots than the Suns. These were huge factors in those wins. The Pacers just getting all these extra chances. Against the Nets, the opposite happened. So the three-point attempt drop happened, and then in this game, the Pacers had 5 offensive rebounds. Just 5. They only had 35 rebounds total. The Nets had 20 offensive rebounds. Day'Ron Sharpe had 9. Day'Ron Sharpe alone had more offensive rebounds than the whole Pacers team. He had 13 in total. No one on the Pacers had more than 6. Terrible rebounding game for the Pacers. Just dismal. Had they lost the game, that would have been why. One of the only ways the Nets could have won this game was effort and shooting variance. They did not get any shooting variance, but the effort kept them in it. They had it within single digits in the second half, in large part because of that. Day'Ron Sharpe plus 9 with 16 points in this game because he just feasted on the glass, and he led the Nets in assists. Day'Ron Sharpe, because he was getting them off the glass and finding teammates. That was the only thing that really kept the Nets in it, that huge possession difference created by their massive advantage on the offensive glass. Pacers won the turnover battle, which helped 10-14. So in the end, the Nets were the team dominating the possessions. They took 19 more shots than the Pacers. 79 shot attempts for the Pacers, 98 for the Nets. The Nets actually made more shots in this game. 40-41 in favor of the Brooklyn Nets. But the Pacers won the three-point battle, 12-10, and what really swung this game was another factor in the shot difference being as stark as it is, was free throws. The Pacers, and Rick Carlisle shouted this out in his post-game media availability that happened about 30 minutes ago, a big factor for the Pacers and their paint pressure and their, air quotes, lack of paint points was getting to the line. They did a really good job drawing contact at the basket or just causing problems with attacks. In this game, they took 23 free throws. Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam combined for 14 of them, and then a bunch of other guys took just 2 or 1. That's still very good. The stars were out, and the Nets players could not guard those guys. Tyrese Halliburton, 9 for 9 from the foul line himself. The Nets only made 7 free throws as a team. The Nets were 7 for 11. They don't really have any free throw generators in their lineup available in this game, and that's just part of the consequence of them being super banged up and have traded away some good players this season. So while the Nets did a good job from the floor of making this like an interesting-ish game in terms of just made shots, a plus 14 advantage in the made free throw department for the Pacers. Halliburton doing more scoring at the line than the whole Nets team. That was the difference. The Pacers won by 14, right? So largely an even game besides that reality. So credit to the Pacers for that. And Rick Carlisle noted that getting into the bonus was a big part of this because some of these were shooting fouls, obviously, at the basket, but it does overstate a little bit what they did in terms of getting those free throws. A lot of them were, guys in the bonus, just getting fouled. It's how a basketball game works. So a win for the Pacers nonetheless. And again, I know this sounds stupid because of who is available for Brooklyn and the perceived talent gap between these two teams, but the Pacers have not earned the benefit of the doubt that they'll win this kind of game. In fact, they looked horrible early. They were only ahead after the first quarter because TJ McConnell hit a shot just before the buzzer of that frame, but largely a game the Pacers didn't probably feel like they played very well. Their starting lineup was good as a unit again, but the rest of their lineups, mixing and matching, bench groups, whatever, had some work to do. They still, though, will be happy to take the win. They're over 500, and their next two opponents in Indianapolis, teams they've beaten this season, the Bulls and the Warriors. They've already beaten those teams on the road. Home wins could get the Pacers climbing the standings, and if the Heat lose to the Kings tonight, that game happening as I'm talking, Pacers could get into playoff position. They could be sixth in the East right now. Obviously, a ton of time to go. Individual standouts in this game, Halliburton, 4 for 7 from deep and 9 for 9 from the foul line. That helps paper over going 1 for 5 on twos. So he had 23 points and 8 assists on his 12 shots. Really efficient game. Good passing, plus 10. He was the Pacers star of the night when he was out there. Things tended to go well for the Pacers. The Nets sometimes sent 2 to him. They sometimes sent 2 to lots of guys on the Pacers, tried to make him move the ball. And some good passes, I thought, from Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam that weren't assists themselves, but just kept the ball moving in a productive way for the Pacers, even though they didn't have that many assists as a team in this game. I thought Halliburton was really great, though, dictating the offense. And I thought Ben Mathurin was also a stand-up performer. It's easy to say that when he had 20 points. That's what he's very good at. And his stats weren't even as awesome as they've been in some recent games where I've given him this praise, but he's continuing to evolve and be the player that the Pacers need him to be, which is blending what makes Ben Mathurin great, really crisp attacks, good drives in the second quarter, I believe it was, may have been the third. He had some awesome takes to the rim. He had a solo, I believe, 9-0 run in this game. That was huge. He had half his threes, including a catch and shoot and rhythm three. He's added that to his game. 20 points on 14 shots with only 2 free throws. Very good game for Mathurin. Didn't drive into much traffic. 3 boards, 2 assists. A low rebounding 8 for him, but he was still very effective. Once again, leading the Pacers in plus-minus. It's happened quite a bit for him of late. And off the bench, Obi Toppin was fine, was effective. TJ McConnell was fine. And I thought Thomas Bryant was quite good in this one, 3 for 4 from the field with some nice blocks and rebounds. He was a +1 as well. Credit to him for filling in a game where they didn't rely on Miles Turner as much after a game where he exited with a calf injury. And the Pacers get it done. Back over 500. Like I said, they'll take it. They finally get over that hurdle. They've been 500 a few times, only over 500 just the once. After opening night, they'll try to bring that record to the highest it's been this season on Wednesday. We'll have more right here. We'll be right here, with more on this channel. Thanks for watching. See you then.